Hello and welcome to another Alpha Clash video here at Hobbies and Happiness. My name's Dan.
I'm Jim, and today we're going over the contenders in Alpha Set 1.
That was a lot of words together, and we kind of screwed up a little bit. That's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We're doing it live. We got it. We are going over all of the contenders from set number 1,
Yes.
The Awakening from Alpha Clash. So this past week, we did, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I had some fun putting together these short little contender spotlights from the Alpha Clash TCG, and now we're gonna dive deep. We're gonna dive deep into each of these contenders. We're gonna have some great discussions, hopefully. And we're going to, we're gonna rate them. We're gonna rate them, we're gonna review them, and kind of give you our takes and our opinions before we dive into a set review for each of the colors. Now, before we get into it, if you want to see more Alpha Clash content from us, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you can be notified when we release more Alpha Clash content here at Hobbies and Happiness. So that being said, we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna start. Now, actually, before we start, we're gonna lay down some ground rules. All right?
Right.
So one of the interesting things about reviewing these cards is, you know, we were talking beforehand, and we were like, okay, we kind of got to review these and kind of evaluate them very differently than we do normal cards, okay? So what we're essentially going to do is we're going to have our discussions, okay? We're going to give our pros, our cons, and then basically evaluate the card as best we can, and then we are going to settle on a rating, okay? And our rating is going to be from S all the way down to D. So we've got 5 different levels: S, A, B, C, and D. Okay, so we're going to go through basically all the pros that we can think of, all the negatives, and there's essentially going to be, the way I initially thought about this is reviewing it, giving it 2 ratings. Okay, we're going to talk about the versatility of the card and then the potential power level of the card, and then kind of give 2 ratings based on that. But after we talked about it, we're like, you know what, let's have the discussion and then let's settle on a rating. Okay, so there's a lot involved here. There really is, and I think you'll pick up on that as we get into these discussions. So without any further ado, let's jump right in, and we're going to start. We're going to start with Jim's favorite, right, Jim? Is that right, Jim?
Yeah, it kind of is.
All right. So you know what, Jim? Why don't you go ahead and read off Clarity for us? All right.
Yeah. So Clarity is a beauty of a card.
Yes.
Starting with 30 HP, she has, at the beginning of your draw step, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, then put any number of them on the bottom of your deck and the rest to the top in any order. That right there, absurdly powerful. Start of the turn, look at the top 2 cards. If you don't like any of them, put them both to the bottom, or you pick which one you're going to draw. And then at 10 HP, she has, once per turn during your primary phase, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If you do, put them back to the top of your deck in any order, then draw 1 card. So not only are you getting that first threshold, now you're also getting the second part, and you're digging so much through your deck.
Okay, so but before we go even further, guys, okay, if you're not familiar, okay, with each of these contenders, they each have 2 different abilities. Okay, that first ability, okay, is essentially their starting ability. Each contender has a health pool, which is located in the top right-hand corner of the card. Okay, so with this one, it's Clarity, Ageless Defender. She's a rogue. She's got the rogue affiliation, and you can find that at the bottom right-hand corner of the card. That's where their affiliation is listed. And then on the bottom left-hand corner of the card is their attack and defense values. Okay, for each contender in set number 1, each contender has an attack of 1 and a defense value of 0. Yep. So they're both. All contenders are 1-0 baseline, okay? And then, so again, we talked about the two different abilities, and each ability, the first one is your starting one, you essentially are never going to lose that throughout the course of a game, okay? In Alpha Clash, there are effects that gain you health. However, your health total, your contender's health total, can never go above their starting health total. So for Clarity, she can never go above 30 HP. Okay, that second ability, there's a value next to it, which hers says 10. That kicks in once she's at that health value or lower. So once she's at 10, then she gets a second ability. If she gains health and goes above that 10, then she does not have access to that second ability. Okay, so keep that all in mind. We are going to be doing a how to play video later on. We're looking forward to that. So that way, if you guys have any questions about how this game works, we'll have all the answers to that as well. Okay, but for the time being, if you go to the Alpha Clash website, you can find their rule book as well. Okay, so I want to make sure we clear that up first. Okay,
Right.
So that first ability. Okay, I'm used to card games where that's an actual spell. Like that is a spell card. And you have to spend resources to do that. But with Clarity, it's free. It is absolutely free, and you have access to it every single turn. Except the only time you don't is if you're going first, you don't have access to it. Okay? Which, normal, right? That's normal, okay? But once you are at 10 or below, you have 10 or less health, having access to both of those abilities. Go to your turn. Let's say you're at 9 health. You go to your turn. Look at top 2. I don't no board wipe there. Bottom. Okay. You draw your card. And then you're like, you know what? Now I'm going to utilize the second ability. I mean, Jim, how powerful is it? Because at that point, we are looking at, we've looked at 2 from that first ability. We bottom both of those. Okay, so we drew another card. And now we were looking at an additional 3 cards. So we've already looked at 6 cards. We've already looked at 6 cards for free.
Yep.
I mean, how powerful is that, dude?
There's in card games, some of the best things you could ever do is dig through your deck and drawing cards, finding you that answer that you just need, or even being able to give you more resources than your opponent to just keep putting things out onto the board is really just worth it. So in terms of every other card game, Clarity's up there. But it's just how can she put up with the other contenders?
right. So let's now talk about like deck building, okay? In the Alpha Clash TCG, okay? So in Alpha Clash, every card in your hand you can use as a resource. Okay. Now every card in your hand is usable as a resource. When used as a resource, that card is placed into your resource zone, tapped, exerted, exhausted. In this game, it is called exhausted, all right, or excuse me, exerted. Exerted. It is exerted. Yes. There's too many games, right? There's too many games with the same type of mechanic.
Or the Clash cards are engaged.
Oh, engaged. My bad. You're correct. It's engaged. It's engaged. You see what I mean? Like there's too many. There's too many. It's the same. It's the same mechanic. They turn sideways.
Yeah, just turn the card sideways.
So the card is engaged, and once engaged, it will generate a one colored resource of the color of that card. Okay. So if you engaged a white card, it'll generate a white resource. Okay. All right. So in deck building, so that's how your resource generation works. Okay. There are no deck building restrictions. There are zero deck building restrictions. When you go to cast a card, when you go to play a card, you just need to have the required resources available in order to play it. So from a deck building perspective, I view Alpha Clash very similarly to how I view Magic the Gathering, right? Because it's the same thing. There are no deck building restrictions in a game like Magic the Gathering, okay? The only deck building restrictions, I shouldn't say there are none. You can only have 4 Clash buffs. You can only have 1 contender in your entire deck. You can only have 1 card with the unrivaled keyword, and then play sets are 4. Okay, so those are the actual deck building restrictions. Okay, but to me that's normal. There's nothing outside. I mean, I guess Clash buffs aren't really normal, right? But there are no more restrictions outside of that. There are no color restrictions. Okay, all right. So that being said, when it comes to deck building, you could build any color deck you want to around Clarity. Okay, so there's 2 avenues I wanted really to discuss each of these contenders. Okay, the first was versatility, and the second was power level. Okay, now with a card like Clarity, a contender like Clarity, her abilities are universally powerful. Universally powerful. Okay, so to me that screams extremely versatile. Okay, now I think a card like Clarity is both very versatile, but also very powerful. Now, she doesn't provide power herself. Like, she doesn't provide, hey, cards get +1/+1, or there's no buffs, nothing like that. Okay. So from that standpoint, she's not inherently powerful herself. It's just the ability to draw and dig every turn in and of itself is extremely versatile. So let's talk versatility first. Okay. If we're grading versatility wise, to me, Clarity's an S.
Oh yeah,
100% S tier when we're talking about versatility.
If we had double S or even triple S tier, she's up there.
Right. 100%. I very much agree. Okay. Now let's talk about, and I think there's a third thing we also need to talk about as well. But let's talk about inherent power level from Clarity. Since she's not giving you any buff whatsoever, she's not saying, hey, your cards are that much more powerful, or that much more powerful. Like, because there are other contenders that provide buffs.
Yes.
Okay. So from that standpoint, if I had to rate Clarity from just a power standpoint, I'd probably just say she's a solid B. Right? Because again, she's not giving you any power. Like, I think there is a world in which the argument could be made she's a D from a power level standpoint because she's not giving you any power. So how do you see it from that standpoint, Jim?
Yeah, I could also see B tier because she's not providing that initial value for your cards.
Right.
But man, it's so difficult.
But again, like you said,
because I could also see the argument for D because she does nothing.
I know. But again, because of how many cards you have the potential to see over the course of a game, like there's no way I would just say she's straight D tier, even from a power level standpoint.
Yeah, because you could also say it like the card that she does get you, right? Aside from the normal one you'd be drawing, because now you look at it, that effect is now her effect.
Right, but it's also not the normal one you would be drawing because you're potentially seeing 2 more cards.
Exactly.
Right? So she
doesn't grant value on per card, but this ability can now change into whatever card it is you've drawn for it.
Correct. Okay. So the third avenue I think we also need to discuss is deck piloting. Okay. So if you're piloting a Clarity deck, I think Clarity decks inherently are going to be more difficult to pilot than other contenders. Okay. I think the skill level needed to effectively play and pilot a Clarity deck is going to be much higher than other decks. And in fact, honestly, I think Clarity decks are going to be at the higher end, but still not the highest end, because I think there are going to be other decks that are going to require more skill to pilot than Clarity. Because Clarity can fit in literally any type of deck, I do think the skill level, you're going to need to be you're going to need to have a little higher skill in order to effectively pilot a Clarity deck. From a deck piloting standpoint, how do you see a contender like Clarity?
I will mess this effect up quite a bit.
We don't miss triggers, right?
I mean, maybe not. But aside from me missing triggers, right? I'm more so meaning of you're digging through your deck and you see a card you really like. You don't want to pass it up. Right. Especially say you're playing a really good Unrivaled card. Yeah. Right? And it's that one copy of, but it's not the card you need. It's going to be very difficult. And for some people, it's going to be impossible for them to pass up that card and get that card that they really do need versus the card that they really want. Right. And I don't know about you, but I've done it a lot to where if I'm ever digging through, I'm like, oh, this card's so good. And then you just take it anyway.
I think we talked about it when we were discussing Clarity on our card of the week. It's like that in and of itself is a skill. That in and of itself is a skill of passing up on cards that you don't need in the moment. Okay, because then you're having to prioritize. Okay, what do I need? Like, what do I need in that moment? Like, prioritizing what you need for your deck. Like that can be difficult, especially for newer players. I don't think Clarity is for the faint of heart. No. Right, for sure. So I think the skill level needed to effectively pilot a Clarity deck is definitely up there. Okay, so grading wise, okay, I will give mine first. Okay.
Oh, man.
So for clarity, Aegis Defender. Okay. Versatility, easy S. Easy S from a versatility standpoint.
Yeah.
Overall power level, I would say B plus from an overall power level because of, again, she's not giving you inherent value, or excuse me, power in herself. Okay. The power of seeing so many more cards than your opponent potentially is itself very powerful.
Yeah.
Easy B plus.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from a skill level needed to effectively pilot a deck, I think, and again, for that, I think easiest to pilot, that would be S tier. Hardest to pilot, that would be D tier. Okay. So for that, I would say she's an easy B minus. Okay. Because it's not super difficult, but it is more difficult.
It's difficult to make the right decisions.
Correct. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Right there. So that would be either a B minus or a C plus.
Yeah.
Overall, I think I would give clarity an A minus for overall strength of clarity as a contender. Yeah. And again, this is not in a vacuum and not even considering other contenders, just knowing clarity and then knowing the overall card pool for the game. So that being said, I would give clarity an A minus. Where would you land? Where would you land for clarity?
Yeah, I was kind of around that point as well. I was thinking high B because I don't know all the different possibilities that you could do with her and what people have done with her.
Right.
So, 100% S tier on versatility.
Yeah.
I can also see the B and even D tier for the power level, how we were talking about it.
Right.
I would have to go high B, low A for clarity. But there is one thing I want to talk about with her as well.
Yes.
Going into the future, more cards are going to be coming out. And I think for her, since she's so versatile, right? She now is going to have even more opportunities to be growing than the other contenders in terms of power level.
Sure.
And especially if they ever come out with dual colored cards, right? If they ever come out with that, now being able to dig for the certain colors that you would need to fix a mana base, if possible, now she grows even more powerful.
Yeah.
Because now it gets to that, am I making the right choices with piloting this?
Right.
And she's going to give you that option that no other contender is going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So, I would say A minus.
Okay. All right. So, because I was just going to ask you, because you're wobbling between A minus, B plus. So you're settled on A minus.
I'll go A minus.
All right. All right. So we're going to settle on A minus.
And in the future, S tier
potentially. but again, and guys, this is what's so interesting, I think, with these discussions is like we have to come to a consensus.
Yeah.
We have to come to a consensus. And guys, you just saw this is kind of difficult, really kind of evaluating all these and coming to a singular rating. Yeah. So, but that's what we're sticking with. We're sticking with A minus for clarity. All right. So the next one we're going to go, we are going in a magic color pie order. We're going Wilburg. So the next one we're going to discuss is the blue contender.
Yes.
And that is Mean Streak. Mean Streak ready to brawl. So Mean Streak is the blue contender. He is in alpha affiliated. He is a 1-0. Again, same stat line as all the other contenders. And his starting ability reads, once per turn during your primary phase, you may move any number of streak counters from a clash card you control to another clash card you control. Also says, clash cards you control with one or more streak counters get trigger defeat, you may draw one card. And then second ability at 10 or less health reads, clash cards you control with one or more streak counters get +1/+1 and super speed. All right, so Jim, what jumps out at you first? What are you seeing?
All right, so for me, this card is going to really upset me because I'm already not good at keeping track of everything on the board.
Yeah.
And now you want me to add more stuff to things on the board, and hopefully I remember the trigger upon death.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Yep.
But the thing I do like about it is if they give us more streak counter stuff and the other colors, which I don't think we have any.
So right now, for the most part, everything that gives you streak counters is in blue.
Okay.
Everything's in blue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on a versatility standpoint, it does seem kind of locks you into that whole thing with just playing blue for him. So that's a little bit lower. But, man, that on death draw card, that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like when it comes to versatility, I think we can also view versatility through the lens not just how many different colors I can play, but how many types of decks you can build. Like if you can build an aggro strategy, or if you can build a mid-range control, like what kind of deck you can build.
Right.
I think you can view, I think, these contenders through that type of versatility lens, not just how many different color combinations can I play with it. Like you could theoretically do that. Is that correct? I don't know. I really don't.
That's why this discussion is difficult.
Because, but again, I look at mean streak and I just see streak counters. Well, you're not giving me streak counters, therefore I have to rely on cards that give me streak counters. So from that standpoint, there's a certain percentage of my card pool that's already taken away with those cards. Like there's opportunity costs that are lost because I can't play certain cards, right? Because I have to find some way to get streak counters. Okay. Now is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. You're just saying as a deck builder, okay, you have to run certain cards, right? So again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it just honestly means it's just not as versatile. I think Mean Streak is definitely not as versatile as a card like or a contender like Clarity. He's just not. Okay, but again, you see trigger defeat, draw a card. I mean, yes, please, sir. Can I have some more? Right? Like 100%. Like straight
but if you
up.
don't have a consistent way of being able to put out these streak counters, then it gets a little bit more difficult.
Right.
And for when you were talking about that aggro mid range or control, which I wasn't even thinking about, it was like, all right, well, but if you're playing control, you're not really getting a lot of these defeat triggers. But then I was like, wait, no, it's not like Magic's control form when you're using a bunch of instant sorceries. It's you're now utilizing your creatures because they all have haste. They're coming out onto the board. You can blow up one of their engaged creatures.
Right.
And so then you're getting that value of if you're able to put the streak counter on it before you go in and attack with the card. Well, now you're getting that extra value of, all right, well, we traded or I killed your thing.
Right.
And then if your card does die, well, now you get to draw a card for it.
Yes.
And that's a form of control.
Correct.
So, this guy is really cool. It's just a lot of stuff I'm not going to remember.
Right. And I think Mean Streak, again, as a contender, and even as the color blue, right? As a color blue, there's a lot of very powerful cards, and and there's plenty of cards which on enter add streak counters, okay, and then draw a card, right? Blue has some very... In all honesty, Jim, like the more I was looking over the card pool for the color blue, I'm like, there's actually really some very, very powerful cards in the color blue. I think one of my favorite cards in this set is called Lefty's Last Stand. It's basically a fog effect, right? I think it's a quick action. I'm pretty sure it's a quick action, but it's basically no clash damage happens. Okay, I can't remember the cost. I have to pull up the card, but that's one that if your opponent's not ready for it, they'll swing in 8 clash damage. Lefty's Last Stand and basically absorb it all essentially. So there's a lot of really good effects. And then let's look at his second ability, clash cards you control with one or more streak counters. They now get a buff. And super speed. Super speed is, if you're from a game like Magic, it's first strike. Okay, I mean that's powerful. I mean that is straight up powerful. There's just no denying that's powerful.
It's an effect that I tend to forget about how powerful it is, because when you're about to swing in with something and then they block with a first striker, like, oh, I completely forgot about that. And to me, I'm thinking we're going to trade. And then I swing into a Thalia and it's like, hey, your card's dead. Like, oh no.
But it's stuff like that Mean Streak has the potential to do. So it means, like, I really think I think Mean Streak has some really, really good potential.
Yeah.
That I mean, I guarantee you, I have not seen decks that really push Mean Streak to his limit.
Yeah.
And I know that there's those decks that are going to be out there, and I'm excited to see those because honestly, I'm excited to play those kinds of decks for sure. Okay, so from a rating standpoint, I want you to walk me through your line of thinking. So, like how would you analyze a card like Mean Streak and rate them?
So for Mean Streak, these are some really powerful effects.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially into the late game when you are at that 10 HP threshold, and now all of your stuff is bigger. It's going to have that super speed. And
now, hang on real quick. So if you read his first ability, okay, it says once per turn, I forgot about this, during your primary phase, you can move stuff.
Yep.
Okay. That's any number. So if you have one card that has 5 streak counters on it and you want to move it to a card that cares about how many streak counters are on it, you can move them, all of them, from that one card and then to the other one. Because there are multiple cards and many of them are Mean Streak specific cards, which are if you have one or more streak counter, you get this effect. 4 or more, you get this effect. 10 or more, you get this effect. You can abuse those resources as well. So honestly, guys, like that first ability is definitely not one to overlook. So I apologize. Continue.
No, you're good. So overall, like all the effects that he gives to your cards, extremely powerful effects.
Yes.
Oh man, for versatility though, it doesn't seem too crazy in terms of versatility. Sure, you have the thing of you can play them a bit aggro, you can play mid range, or you can play control. But you can't play all 3 of those in every single color. So he's really not too high up there. I can see a halfway point for versatility.
If you said versatility, in all honesty, I'd probably give him like a C. For versatility, maybe a C plus. Because again, like you have to play blue cards. You're playing
blue, right? Until we get to a point where if you're able to have multicolor and then you're just playing blue with something else,
right?
Because until we get Mean Streak counters from other cards, you're strictly playing blue X, right? So I think you can still play him in multicolors.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is why I'd put him in B. It's just blue and whatever else.
Right. Okay. Now how about an overall power level?
Power level. Oh, these are really good abilities.
And I'll talk about power level and then also deck piloting.
Yes. So for deck piloting, it does seem very. It's pretty basic. You just got to remember some stuff, which for me, I guess, is not basic.
But then also sequencing too.
Yes,
sequencing is going to be pretty key as well.
Order matters.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it's too crazy in terms of deck piloting. It is very basic stuff. If the only problem is how you order your stuff, well, all your decks kind of matter for ordering.
Right.
So. Man, for deck piloting, he does seem pretty easy. I'd give him like around a B. Power level, I could also see. I could see an A. Okay.
All right. So from versatility, I'm easy C. C. It's no higher than a C. Honestly, maybe even a C minus. In all honesty, because again, you have to play cards that say that give you streak counters. You have to. Period. End of story. You have to. Okay. Power level. I think that's an A. And from a power level, it's A. Maybe B plus, but I think that's an easy A. On all honesty,
these
for power
really
level, because they're very, 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 very powerful, especially in that late game. Just giving your stuff super speed. If you're able to just spam out all those streak counters, and then now all your stuff is first strike or super speed, then that is definitely not to be overlooked. Okay,
being able to multi-block with cards, so if you are playing that defensive route later on, you now have your creatures are bigger and they both are getting in with first strike. That's pretty difficult.
And then a deck piloting, I think you said an A for deck piloting, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you
yeah.
said?
I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
easy. I said like A B range.
Yeah, it is relatively straightforward, I think.
Yeah.
And so if I had to give it an overall grade, okay, an overall rating, based off of everything that we've said, I would probably land on probably a B. I think a solid B.
Yeah.
I think he's a solid B. No B plus, no B minus. I think he's right at that B. Is what I think.
Yeah. I think our versatilities were different because you pretty much brought up the different types of the decks rather than colors.
Right.
And I was like, well, that is a bit of versatility. So I was
Sure.
like, if it wasn't for that, then yeah. So I think you're correct with the C.
Yeah. So mean streak, we are settling on a B, solid B for mean streak rated Brawl. All right, next one we're gonna discuss is a Moxie. Moxie Ready to Hunt. So Moxie Ready to Hunt is a alpha hunter. So she's a 1/0 Moxie Earth alpha hunter. Again, 30 HP, and then her starting ability reads, Alpha Hunter Clash cards you control may attach more than one weapon, okay? In Alpha Clash cards are only able to attach one weapon, okay? So only one weapon unless you're playing Moxie, unless you're playing Moxie deck. Her second ability kicks in at 10 or less, reads, once per turn during your primary phase, you may attach a weapon you control to an Alpha Hunter Clash card you control without paying that weapon's attach cost. So Jim, what do you think about Moxie here?
Honestly, this card is the embodiment of versatility. Think about it. You got your weapons and alpha hunters.
Yep.
Out of all the possibilities you could do, that's all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her versatility is the lowest tier possible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that stuff is not powerful.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Just because. Okay. How do I want to ask this? Okay. If you are playing Moxie, are you playing anything other than Alpha Hunters in black cards? Well, just Alpha Hunters.
Yeah, it's just
Alpha Hunter weapons.
Yeah.
Just Alpha Hunter weapons.
Unless the card is just so extremely good on its own, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Because, at that point, then you're kind of ruining the flow of your deck, and you're like, oh, I really wish I could have equipped 2 weapons to this card. Well, if only something told you it only works for Alpha Hunter cards.
Now, you don't necessarily need to be running black, okay? Except in the first set. In the first set, in order to really use her effects, you need to be running black. Because that's where all of those cards lie, is in black, okay?
Yep.
So future sets will determine where else we're going to see Alpha Hunters, and where else we're going to see weapons, okay?
Yes.
So from a color standpoint, you could be in other colors, but for right now, you're only in black, okay? Yep. You could splash other colors in depending upon what type of deck you're looking to build, okay? And that, I enjoy splash colors, right? Because again, that is where, in all honesty, I think that's where your creativity as deck builder stands out. Yep. And then honestly, your splash color could really shift what kind of deck you're building as well, right? But the majority of your deck is going to be Alpha Hunters and weapons, right? So, and again, because you and that's the thing, it's not Alpha Hunters or weapons. It's both. It's got to be both. It has to be both.
Yeah.
So from a versatility standpoint, I don't think there's any contender. This is the bottom of the barrel when we're talking about contenders from the first set from a versatility standpoint.
Yeah.
From a versatility standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. It is what it is, but I mean, Moxie is great though.
Doesn't mean she's not cool,
right?
And very powerful.
There are some insane weapons though. There are some very
there's some really good ones.
So if we're talking about potential power level, right, then that's very high. But again, that potential power level is not because of Moxie. You're then looking at what kind of weapons am I running, right? Yeah. Her power comes in with those free attach costs, okay? So, I mean, if you look at a card and it has, say, a 3 attach cost, okay, and then you're getting around that 3 attach cost or equip cost, depending on the game you're coming from, right? And you're getting around that turn after turn after turn with Moxie, then that is insane value. That's a lot of value you're generating off of a card like Moxie. Okay. Yeah. So how do you see a card? So now let's talk about her from the standpoint of deck piloting, because you've played the minimized Clash Kit version. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like how is it piloting a Moxie deck? How do you think piloting a Moxie deck is going to be?
So for piloting the Moxie deck, it is pretty straightforward. The only difficult part really for me was getting used to I can attack, reattach a weapon to another card, and then attack again. So you're getting a lot more value from your weapons. But overall, I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
I do not agree.
You didn't think so?
No, it's not. It's straightforward from the standpoint of, okay, I play a weapon and now I have to equip the weapon to something, okay? But the question, because it's not, for the most part, especially in those Clash kits, it's more than just get a thing on board and then equip it, because there's a lot of cards that are, you have a lot of trigger enters, okay, of, okay, now I missed, right? And then who do I equip this to? Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of value decisions that do need to be made. Okay. I mean, yes, if you only have one Clash card and then one weapon, okay, yeah, it's relatively straightforward of, okay, I attach my one weapon to the one Clash card.
Let me throw as why I thought it was straightforward. I was just going aggro, so it didn't matter. Okay.
Fair point.
Dan's like, I was playing this deck in the late game. The control's really good. And I'm like, we are playing the same deck 2 opposite ways.
Right.
You know, me, I was just like, get in, attach, get in.
And in all honesty, that's from every conversation that I've ever had about this, that's not how you play the Moxie deck. it's really not how Moxie as a contender shines. That's really not where she shines. She doesn't, the strategy doesn't, it really doesn't hold a candle to any other aggro strategy. Okay. Now granted, in the game he's referring to, that was a mirror match. Okay.
Yeah, it was a mirror.
Moxie is not going to hold her own against an aggressive Magnate deck. It's 100%. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's really not. Okay. Yeah. But when you're talking mirror match, that's a very, very different story. Okay. So I think the general strategy for Moxie is, in all honesty, build up your defenses, wait, play mid-range, maybe even more control, and then you swing out in the late game with just giant threats. Yeah. Like, that's typically how Moxie's going to win. But like you could very well try and build a different deck based around Moxie though. Yeah. So
that's why I was saying she's
basic. yes, correct. So,
but when we were going over all of the cards in black for Moxie, I was like, wow, there's a lot of really good endgame stuff here.
There is, for sure.
So I definitely also see that.
It's just Moxie she very well can fall flat in the early game. Like if she doesn't have her if she doesn't have some bodies on board, just some weenies on board to block, she'll very easily lose, because she doesn't have access to the early game or even the mid game threats that the other colors have access to.
Plus, you're spending a lot more of your resources on, okay, now I have this unattached weapon,
right,
and now I have to pay to attach it.
Right. You can lose a lot of tempo by having to move all your weapons around, and that's where that skill comes in. Of okay, I need my weapon to be in a specific place. That way, I can get around all these other costs. So if you play it wrong, you could miss out on a lot of tempo. There's some big tempo. There's a lot of losses of tempo swings that can come into play when you're playing Moxie. So all that being said, okay, like where would you land on a rating for Moxie?
So for Moxie,
because again, we've established not versatile. Yeah, probably the least versatile contender so far. Okay, piloting, again, depending on the deck, depending on the meta, it can be difficult. So I think from a piloting standpoint, probably on the lower end. Okay, power level though can be pretty powerful. It can be very powerful, right? Because again, this is another thing where it's not providing you a power printed on the card. It's providing you value, providing you that value. So that being said, like where would you land on a rating?
So since I played her wrong, you know, it is it is a little bit more skewed, I guess I could say. But going off of taking into consideration what Dan has said, you know, I could see somewhere in B tier in terms of she has very little versatility. If she is very difficult to pilot, then that's also down there as well. But the power level is up there, so I could see high C, low B range. I don't know exactly where I'd put her.
Okay, so based off of everything, I mean, I think I kind of agree with you from a generalized level, like low B, high C. I think, in all honesty, given everything that we've just talked about, you're only playing one kind of deck. You're only playing one kind of deck.
True.
You're really only playing one kind of deck, and then yes, it's kind of relatively straightforward, but it can be difficult to pilot. In all honesty, I think I would put her I'd put her at C+.
Yeah.
I think I'd really put her at C+, because again, if I'm seeing a Moxie deck, I really think, and again, the meta has not been established yet. The game's technically not even out yet with the full release. Okay. Now, this opinion could change once we see a meta. I really think, looking at Moxie, if I see Moxie on the other side of the table, I have a good idea of what I'm going to face.
Yeah.
It's only going to be one kind of deck. Okay. So that being said, I'd probably land on that C+.
Yeah.
I'd probably land on C+. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like C+.
All right. So that's going to be C, and that kind of hurts me to say, because I wanted, again, Moxie's a good card. It's a good card, and that deck can be very powerful. But I think it's only going to be that one kind of deck.
Yep.
So that's going to be Moxie ready to hunt. All right, next. I think Jim likes this one. I think Jim likes it. Okay, Torque. It says Torque the Diabolical. So Torque the Diabolical, the red contender, again that 30 HP. He's got that 1-0 stat line. Torque Earth with the Alpha affiliation. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and read off Torque the Diabolical's abilities for us?
So his first ability, 30 HP. Once per turn during your primary phase, you may engage this card. So turn it sideways.
Yeah.
If you do, deal 1 damage to target clash card. I love ping effects.
Yep.
Whenever non-clash damage is dealt to this contender, draw 1 card. This ability triggers once per turn. Then his 10 HP threshold. Whenever your non-clash damage is dealt to this contender, target clash card you control gets +1/+1 until end of the turn.
All right. So what do you initially see here, Jim?
So, you know, I love ping effects, but it's also when you're able to get the ability off again in the exact same turn. So kind of like machine gunning something down. It's, tap it, get the ping off, untap it somehow, tap it again to get another ping off. It's basic to me. The versatility is there for this first effect of, it doesn't matter what I'm playing, I'll always have that effect. But that second part of the first ability, whenever non-clash damage is dealt to this contender, draw a card. He seems very basic.
I think on its face though, this is inherently more versatile than some of the other cards.
100%.
Right? Because again, you can engage it. You can deal 1 damage to target clash cards. So it can be your stuff. It could be your opponent's stuff. Okay. Yes. And there are many, many cards in red that care about if you deal damage, do a thing. Okay. There are many different cards that have those types of effects stapled on the card. Okay. Yeah. Torque himself, as a contender, has it as well on that second line of text as well. Yeah. Non-clash damage dealt to this contender, draw a card. Now, the one thing I will say about this, though, is if you are not building your deck around those effects, then you have to rely on your opponent to ping your contender for non-clash damage to get that draw. Yeah. Which
at that point, if you're not building it, it's remove that off of the card.
Well, right, but so I think my point is looking at it, it is versatile. However, it's not, because you have to build your deck around it to get those benefits and get those synergies off. So it's more versatile, but again, it's not, because then you have to build it. You have to build around it. So again, comparing it to a card like Clarity, it is not as versatile as Clarity, because you're just always getting those effects. In order to get these bonuses, in order to get these effects, you have to take advantage of it. Right. So that's where I'm like, it's versatile, but it's not. Right. And then did you read that you read that second ability, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So that's another one where whenever non-clash damage is dealt to this contender, target clash card you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So again, he cares about non-clash damage. Okay. Caring about that non-clash damage. So, I mean, if you're not building your deck around non-clash damage, you have to rely on your opponent too.
Yes.
So he cared. So like if you're running Torque, you have a non-clash damage kit essentially.
Yeah.
You're running Here Comes the Boom. You're running Solar Smash. You're running cards that care about non-clash damage. I mean, in fact, you're running red. Yeah. Like if you're running Torque, you're running red. Yeah. Right. Now, red cards can go in any other contender, right? But if you're running Torque, you are playing red cards. Okay, so from a versatility standpoint, again, like he's versatile, but he's kind of not.
You lose out on a lot of, I guess, 2 of the 3 abilities that he has in terms of now being able to play versatile, right? For me, I was just like, all right, well, he's versatile because if these other effects don't matter, you can always just tap them to deal 1 point of damage in whatever it is you're playing.
Right. And the thing to think about, keep in mind, right? And this might change how some people think about this, right? When we talk about damage and damage types in Alpha Clash, okay, non-clash damage is persistent until the end of the turn. Clash damage only persists during the clash. Once that clash is over, all that clash damage gets wiped from the contender. So let's say you have a 1/1, okay, and your opponent has a 2/2, okay. You could engage Torque, ping your opponent's clash card for 1. He now has 1 damage marked on it, so it goes from a 2/2 to a 2/1, and then you could effectively swing in with your 1/1 and then destroy your opponent's card, assuming it was engaged, right?
But if you do that the opposite way,
if you do it the opposite way, it doesn't work.
It doesn't die.
Correct, exactly. It doesn't work. Okay, so that is definitely something to keep in mind, right? And that's something that I had to get used to. I had to very much wrap my head around, because it's not something that I was used to at all. Okay, and if you come from any other TCG, you may not be used to that either. So, like that's a thing, right? So again, versatility. So from a versatility standpoint, like if we're giving it a grade for versatility, I think if I was giving a grade from versatility, I mean, I'd probably give it a C+, B-. I honestly probably C+, because you know it's a lot of red cards, most likely that I'm playing with Torque. How would you rate it from a versatility standpoint?
So I see the versatility being high, because again, I'm taking that like other stuff, and I guess I shouldn't be, because that's, you know, it's situational for that stuff to be occurring to where I will always, no matter what, once per turn during the main phase, be able to engage him to deal a point of damage to anything. So, you know, I see the versatility being higher, but now because you don't have that other stuff, the power level because of it drops. Right. So it's like, all right, do I want to give this a decent power level, low versatility, high versatility, low power level? Right. So for me specifically, I would say the versatility is up there. I could see B+ to A range. Okay. How about power level? Power level. This part seems rough.
Well, in all honesty, though, Jim, I think this is actually pretty powerful, because again, I'm seeing card draw and buffs staple to him.
Yeah.
Right now, again, I have
in
to
form of pain HP.
Correct. Life's a resource. Life's a resource, guys. Right. Yes, but still, like that's still stapled onto the card. Right. So again, if you're building your deck around this to utilize it, I mean, that's gonna be pretty powerful, right? It's in the early game giving me card advantage. It's giving me cards in the early game, but in the late game, I'm still having access to the card draw, but now I have a payoff. Now I have that payoff of buffing a clash card I control. So I think this is actually pretty powerful. Like the power level, I mean, that's an easy A for me from a power level standpoint.
Yeah. I could see A, or even A minus, because I think in comparison, kind of how the mean streak is, towards like you're pretty much getting the same effects with the +1 or the draw card. Sure, you're not getting the super speed, but comparison to that, and now you're also paying life for it.
Except with mean streak, it's more conditional because it's target defeat.
Yeah, true. So it is also slower.
Right.
Yeah, I could see A minus range for him.
Okay. And then from a deck piloting standpoint,
this is also once per turn. The
that's
other one
true.
can be multiple.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
And you also see is like, oh well, this has to deal non-clash damage, but the other one has to have a streak counter on it.
Yeah.
So it's like regardless, it's still one card for that specific use as well.
Right.
So one's slower, but you can get it more times.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A minus.
So what about deck piloting? When we're talking about piloting the deck, I think. I mean, you play Burn, like you've played Burn, and
this ain't exactly Burn.
True. But there are times where Burn can be straightforward, but there are other times where it is 100% not straightforward at all.
You have to play control sometimes if you're playing Burn. It is not just I play a bunch of cards, go face, I throw all my lightning bolts at your face. This is There's also times where I have to play control.
I think Torque the Diabolical decks are going to be Burn on steroids. Like from a deck piloting standpoint.
Okay.
That's how I'm kind of thinking about it.
I can see this rather than Burn setup, how Prowess list used to be.
Yes.
It's like sometimes you have to target your own stuff because, well, they might be playing a specific card to where they themselves have hexproof. And so you have to target your own things, put that in the proper order, and then be able to swing in while getting these other effects. So I can see it being played like that.
And then one big thing to keep in mind, guys, is red is the only card that has a quasi board wipe at the moment with Here Comes the Boom. Here Comes the Boom, that 4 cost, deal 5 damage to all clash cards, and then Torque also has the ability to utilize, he's got a clash card where whenever it's dealt non-clash damage, he gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn for each point of non-clash damage that he's dealt instead. So those are all available to Torque. So he really cares about all that damage coming in and then directing it to wherever he wants, right? So it's really, where am I going to put all of that damage, right? That you're really wanting to think about. So that, all of that being said, from a grade standpoint, from a rating standpoint, all right, Jim, I think I am going to land for Torque the Diabolical. I think I'm landing at an A minus. I think I'm landing at an A minus.
Holy moly!
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking. Where do you think? Where are you landing? And then we'll discuss.
Yeah, I like that point because again, I put his versatility a little bit higher, but the power is then at that point lower because, well, he's not providing you much if you're going that range.
Right.
So that's why it was a little bit difficult for me. But the piloting does also, it can be straightforward. It can also be, a little bit more difficult to do. I guess it's all right. I don't really know exactly where to throw him, to be honest with you. It just seems overall difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult to judge.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm trying to go back. I'm really trying to just think about kind of where. Yeah, I think if I'm landing somewhere, I think I'm landing at an A minus. I mean, I could potentially be swayed to a B plus. It's just Here Comes a Boom is such a powerful card, and then just in all honesty, like going into the late game and then just the potential to just draw another card and buffing my stuff on top of it potentially. If I'm at 1, I mean, I've won games where I'm at 1 HP, 2 HP, but my opponent is at 0. I mean, I still win. Like, I don't care what my health is as long as my opponent is at 0. Yeah. Right. So
you're gonna care when they're playing burn, but then at that point you're getting the effect.
Right. So. Exactly. So I think I can live. I think I can live at an A minus. What do you think, Jim? You there? Or are you gonna convince me to go down to B plus?
Okay. So
make the argument.
All right. So why I was thinking maybe less than A minus after you're talking, if really the only reason you're throwing it there is because of how good of one specific card is, you're saying the Here Comes the Boom?
Here Comes the Boom, yeah.
This does only trigger, or that first effect only triggers once per turn. The other one to be able to get the +1/+1s, and they have to have a bigger butt than 5 damage. Be able to eat more than 5 damage.
No. Whenever non-clash damage is dealt to this contender.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's just to the contender. Okay. So if you've got Solar Smash, if you've got Solar Smash, now granted, Solar Smash is one source, right? But that deals 3 damage, so he only gets that +1/+1 because it's not for each point of damage.
Board wipes cause you to bring a card to A minus.
If you ping him multiple times, then you could buff something else 3 times.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm hyping it up too much.
Turn a card into a +1/+1.
Yeah.
Unless you have some other form of tap this card to deal a point of damage.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe I am hyping this up too much.
I think A minus is a little too high.
You think so? Yeah. All right, so B plus. You think B plus? Then?
I could see B plus. Yeah, I could see B plus.
Okay. Yeah, and again, remember, guys, this is also set 1. Set 1, and we're gonna get more cards too. So we could be getting more cards and just make him that much better as well.
If we get a card that is a clash card that is engages to deal a point of damage to anything, and then you're able to
All right,
I don't even know what it's called.
Jim, did you know? Did you look at all these cards?
I haven't got to look at all the reds. We have it,
Jim.
From untap.
Oh my goodness.
We have untap effect.
Well, well, hang on. There is a card which is you tap it, deal ping. You tap the card, deal a point of damage. That's all you need, but that's all you need right now.
No, I was going to say to also be able to restand after playing like an instant.
You're not. It's not gonna say on that card right now. Remember, set 1. I would only expect on set 1 to have a card which is very much like Torque.
Yes.
You engage it to deal 1 point of damage. So what are you looking for right now?
To be able to restand after playing an action card. Or an instant.
Dude, this is not Lorcana. This isn't Lorcana. He's looking for Ariel. This wrong game, Jim.
Look, it's not a wrong game because you're already playing on such a high power level with some of these cards. And why can't I be able to restand?
Okay, so the card is Flare. Okay, Flare's a 1/1 for 1. Once per turn during your primary phase, you may engage this card. If you do, deal 1 damage to target clash card or contender.
Beautiful card.
Yeah. So
give me restand.
Okay, so what are you looking for? Okay, hang on. So you mean to tell me if I can do an effect more than once, it's a better card?
Thank you.
Well, duh. I mean, yeah, that's obvious.
All right, and what are the basic actions or whatever actions? Play an action, restand the card, be able to tap again. Give me that. That's what I want.
I mean, there's no card like that right now.
Also, I mean, that's a 1-drop. That's a really good 1-drop.
I know.
It would also not be 1-drop. My card would not be a 1-drop.
Yeah. No, that's Flare. Flare is a very good card, and we'll talk about that when more in depth when we do our set.
I would
review
just
in
want
the red.
more synergies of the ping mechanic, so that way you can get more of these effects.
Yeah, I doubt that's gonna happen for a very long time.
I wouldn't say a very long time.
I would. I would. In all honesty, the way that I see the design, right, is we're introducing effect. We're not going to revisit or make this that much better until many sets down the line, right? I mean, like, what? I don't understand the point of doing that from a design standpoint, because then you've just pushed out everything that you just designed, right?
To cause other decks to be, I guess, to add synergies to decks that are already out, so power scaling doesn't fall off completely.
Say that again?
To reintroduce support to other decks or older decks, so that way power scaling doesn't fall off for the old decks.
Again, we also have to remember, I mean, we're talking about set one, right?
Yes.
We're talking about set one where we're establishing a baseline. We're establishing the baseline and the foundation. I don't expect anything about, hey, everything that we introduced in set one, just do it all again.
Right. All right.
You know
so
I mean?
I guess
that's
the part that was throwing me off was you said far down the line. So I could see it like when you're saying far down the line, I guess I'm assuming 3-4 years. I could see after a year to be able to reintroduce effects that were from a set one.
I mean, potentially, but again, I'm not the designer.
Yeah.
You know?
So all right. So that was the part that was just throwing me off of far down the line, my 1 year of versus whatever it was you were thinking.
And again, I think we also have to evaluate these from the standpoint of what's there and not what it could be.
Yeah.
You know, with do it again. Well, obviously, you do it again, it's going to get better. I mean, obviously.
And it's not like, I mean, to be able to essentially burn cards is what that is. Tap a creature to burn something. Burn isn't like such a crazy mechanic where they're never going to reintroduce it again.
Well, yeah, and again,
so that's why I mean,
it's
being far down the line.
It's also very much a fundamental strategy to red as well. But it's just, I think it's just to me, it's a lazy design of, hey, the thing that we just said in set one, we're going to come in with set two of, hey, we had that card in set one. Here's a card that just do it again. Like, if and remember, I'm not a designer.
Well, that's if you're trying to think about it like that, to where, you know, saying Magic's block set of their even 2 or 3 sets and then come out with a core set, their year of making cards is a theme because that's what they were trying to push this story. Right. So if they're also trying to push a story, but it's every single 3 months or 4 months, they come out with something completely different, which creatively makes a lot of sense, but to be able to extend a story even further of, okay, this is everything that happened. All right, is that story just done and now we just don't care about any of these characters anymore? Like, where are they at in the world as well? What's going on with them?
Why are we talking about stories now?
Because you were saying lazy design, I bring up Magic where they had their block set of, we talk about the Return to Ravnica, you go into Gatewatch, you go into the next set, and for that whole year, it's based around this theme. So would we not be able to, in the next set, have more cards for Torque?
Jim, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is I think it's lazy to say I design a card and said, do effect. Next set, do effect again. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. And like I just said, I'm like, okay, and that's if you're looking at it like that. But there's only so much stuff cardboard cards can do.
Well, true. But again, I that's my only point. That's my only point.
Yeah, you see it being lazy. I don't see it being lazy because you're adding synergy to decks that have already been made.
Okay, so then what's stopping you? Complete tangent. I don't know how we got into this, but it's fine. It's fine. The last thing I'll say is it not lazy of I'm going to make 20 cards, okay? Let's just say the set is 20 cards, okay? And then the next set, 20 cards. Everything that we just did, do it again.
Yeah, yes, in theory.
Okay,
yes.
That's my only point.
But would you not want to have the decks you enjoy playing have more synergy or more redundancy or synergies for the deck?
Yes, true. That's not what I'm saying. But again, okay, then then if you just keep doing that over and over and over again.
I'm not telling them to keep doing it over and over and over again.
That's my only point. That's my only point.
And it's not like I said, give me 5 of this effect.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just
Right, but what you're going off of, I'm going to take 20 cards and then the next set reprint essentially the exact same 20 cards.
You're not. I still think it's lazy. I think it can be lazy. It could also be not. It could very well be not. Sure. But I still think it can be.
Okay, all right. I guess where I'm kind of...
I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it can be.
All right. I guess what I'm kind of taking it is lazy equals bad.
No, I didn't say lazy equals bad.
Right, but that's kind of just where my brain is going for it. Okay. Because lazy tends to be like a bad thing most of the time in people's minds.
I mean that's up to each individual person to decide for themselves. Lazy is just lazy. Lazy is not inherently bad.
Yeah.
And to me, lazy is not creative.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you can do it without being lazy, right? It's just, I think inherently, if you just say do an effect, okay, this next set, hey, just do it again. And then if you see that over and over and over again, that's lazy.
It's bad. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying is it can be that. That's my only point.
Yeah. I see
that's
it being,
my only point.
If you're giving more options for previous decks, especially to be better, I don't see that being like a bad thing at all.
No,
or even necessarily lazy.
I also think that's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
I think, yes, more options, more synergies for existing strategies, sure, but that's not what I had initially brought up.
Right.
My specific comment was do X effect again. Do this again. Right? That was my only point.
Yeah.
My only point.
It's just how you were saying it is like it was a bad thing to do in a card game.
No.
And I was just like, what are you talking about?
In general, no.
Yeah.
But again, I have been around long enough to just see plenty of designers be extremely lazy and say, hey, we designed all these cards. Now we're just going to say, do it again. And that's also not a nod to a dig to Flesh and Blood either, because go again, that's not my point either. It's just, again, like for me, like I want to see original, creative. I want to see people. I wanted to see designers be creative, right? And then my mind initially goes to, if I just see do this thing again. It generally leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But again, everything you said, I 100% agree with. More strategies for existing, more synergies for existing strategies, 100% sure. And I also think you can do that by still being very creative, right? But anyway, go ahead.
Nothing to really add to. Is just more of a realization of where it's kind of coming from. So for Cardfight Vanguard, they very rarely will reprint not a reprint, but give a synergy to or support to older decks that have been out. Where it got into a huge problem of some decks didn't get support for over an entire year. There were some, right? So it was just like, they were being extremely creative and making a bunch of new stuff, but it's like, okay, well, what about the old stuff? Well, now if you could also think of it as like, you're being creative every single set, you're increasing the power level. Well, now it's just about, I'm sure it's always about money, right? But at that point, it's also not about the player. Either.
Right.
So for Vanguard, it was just like you would have to wait extremely long for your deck to get something. And sometimes when it does get support, it's not even good. So it's like I haven't even made any changes to it in even longer of a time frame. So it's now just realizing where a lot of this is coming from. It's like, sure, it's like Dan said, it's a lazy thing to do, but it's a good thing to do, and it can also be bad if you don't do it. Yeah,
I think, and again, it can be, but it also cannot be too. Like again, I think it all goes back to design intent. Right. And that is really the crux of everything that we were talking about, right? Is design intent. Right. And so I was viewing it through through one lens, which it can be like it has the propensity and potential to be a lazy design, but it also doesn't, right? It also can very well not be. Like I think when you're talking about design, these designers make specific decisions, for certain reasons, right? But again, that's for the designers to decide among themselves. So that was a complete tangent, and who knows if this is even going to make it into the video. We'll see. So all that being said, we are set. Yeah, right. We are settling on B+ for Torque the Diabolical.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So that is Torque the Diabolical. An interesting conversation, nonetheless. That's for sure. All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is Magnate Awaken. Magnate Awaken is the green contender. Magnate Earth, again, that 1-0 stat line, 30 HP. He is the leader of the Alphas, the Alpha affiliations. So at 30 HP, his ability reads Alpha Clash cards you control get +0, +1. Second ability at 10 HP reads, once per turn during your primary phase, you may engage this card. If you do, target opponent discards 1 card. All right, Jim, what do you see when you look at Magnate Awakened?
Well, he's more versatile than Moxie.
Yes, true. It's almost not that much though, right?
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. But again, you see that first ability, Alpha Clash cards you control. I mean, you're only running alphas. Mm-hmm. You're only running alphas. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there a world in which you don't run alphas and you run Magnate? Probably not.
Probably not.
Because, I mean, are you building a deck just to take advantage of that second ability? No, because you're already at. What are
you going to do? Low. Sacrifice 20 life to go to that?
Yeah, right. I mean, and there are other cards that can give you that discard effect as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're running Magnate, you're running alphas.
Yeah.
You know, and there are a lot of good alphas to run in set 1. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, from a versatility standpoint, not extremely versatile, but there are a lot of good alphas. There's are a lot of good alphas. So, from a versatility standpoint, where would you land on rating it versatility?
D+.
D+? Really?
He's higher than Moxie.
He is, but again, it's not like, I think where I'm looking at it is there's not a lack of alphas in set 1. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I really don't see it being higher than a C in terms of versatility.
I would say not higher than a C.
Yeah.
But I mean, all right, let's ask a hypothetical here. Okay. If we look at all the Clash cards, okay, in set number 1, okay, and Clash cards, again, if you're not familiar, that's like the creature cards in other card games, okay? And the percentage of Clash cards was 70% alphas. Mm-hmm. Does that change your versatility standpoint?
If it's that high?
I don't think it's 70%. I think it's like 50, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if it's that high, and there's really only three majorities of the creature types?
In set 1, affiliations. In set 1, we have a lot of, and I've got them all right here. Let's see if I can find the affiliations. We have a lot of alphas. There's alpha hunters, alphas, and rogues. And okay. I think alphas is the majority. Easy majority is alphas.
Yeah, looks like that.
I think I don't have the stats in front of me.
There's a lot of green though.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So I honestly I think it's like 60 to 70% is all alphas. So there's you can't miss them in set number 1.
Yeah.
So and that's where I said yes. I mean, again, it's not versatile when you look at it, but then when you look at how many alphas there are in set number 1, it's still quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he to me, from a versatility standpoint, he could come up to a B in my eyes. Mm-hmm. Definitely not A or S from versatility, but he could come up to a B. Now, it could go lower when we get more sets. Like, let's say set 2 or 3, you're not seeing a lot of alphas. Mm-hmm. You're seeing a lot of other affiliations.
Yep.
Okay, then you're B still being more restrictive.
Yeah, and the next set they could be like, oh, we're only going to give like 3 different ones, kind of like what they did with the discarded in this set, and give everything else a lot more because, well, The ones that weren't in the set one, well, now they're getting plussed up, and then the other ones could also be, well, since Alpha was so high, Alpha Hunter should also be higher, or the Rogue should be higher in comparison.
Right.
So as of right now, I mean, the versatility is high.
Right. So that's where I think from a versatility standpoint, I could go low B, high C.
Yeah, I can see that.
For versatility. Power level, I think it's high A from a power level. I mean, high A, low S in all honesty, just because there's no other. It's just stapled on. Your Alpha Clash cards get +0, +1. They get a defensive buff.
Yeah,
and that's huge. That's huge. I mean, if I had to settle one, I'd probably say like an S minus.
Oh man, S minus.
I don't know, man, because it's especially when you're playing aggressively.
Yeah.
My stuff's gonna live, yours isn't.
Yep.
Like that's where it's just like, oh. But then again, looking at the stat lines and all of them, probably just high A. Probably just high A from a power level standpoint. But you know,
I don't know the exact power or attack defense of the cards, but when we were looking at it, it seemed a lot of the lower drop ones had a lot of 1 toughness, and if they
depends on
were
the color. Depends on the color. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones we were looking at, it seemed like there were a lot of low toughness while having a decent attack to it. It could have been like 2 or even 3. So for like Magic, if say it was the vanilla of like a 2/2 for 2, obviously this thing is, your cards are always going to live a trade.
Right.
But if looking at this, when a good amount of the cards I was looking at were like 2 attack, 1 defense, well, your card's still going to trade at that point. But if the stats are ever the exact same, then your card just always lives. So the power level is up there. I like an A+. I don't know if I can give it S tier power. Yeah. I don't think I can.
Yeah.
If it was +1/+1, oh man.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, that's better.
I don't know if I can. I'm saying in terms of going into S tier.
Sure.
I don't think I can give it S tier with just being bigger defense.
Now, but how also about, you got to also look at, if you're at 10 or low health, making you discard a card in a late game.
Yeah.
Like, now could you go into S tier with that being stapled onto him as well?
Now, that is, extremely good. It is a good thing, but I know a lot of times in late game for card games, a lot of the times you're just top decking. Unless you have some way of out-resourcing your opponent, or if they're playing a control deck, if it's aggro, it doesn't really seem like the discard's going to matter, even against the mid-range.
Unless they're holding a clash buff, and then you discard it.
True. If you get rid of a clash buff, that is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So, man, I think overall I don't put a lot of emphasis on the discarding.
Okay.
But if you're able to get rid of something good, man, is it extremely powerful.
Yeah, right.
But if you don't get rid of something good, then
it doesn't
matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, you're still ahead in card advantage. Yeah. As far as cards in hand, you're still ahead at that point. So,
but I mean, I'll lose card advantage to win the game all day.
Correct.
And so I could see S tier overall as a card. But even A+, because sometimes I'm just not putting a lot of emphasis on this 10 HP.
So now let's talk about deck piloting. I think Magnate decks are going to be relatively straightforward. I think you just go face. I think you're just going to be aggressive and you go face.
Yeah.
Now you could. I don't think you're building Magnate control. I think you could have Magnate mid range for sure.
Yeah.
So you could go Magnate aggressive. You could go a Magnate mid range deck. But I don't think I think you're mostly gonna stick to an aggressive strategy when you're playing Magnate. Because again, in order for you want to take advantage of that defensive buff. And you're not taking advantage of that defensively, honestly. You're taking advantage of that by being offensive and then surviving those initial clashes. So that is where I think you're going to really utilize Magnate as a contender. How do you see it?
So I can see you also playing this guy exactly how you're saying, but I could see it being a form of a control list.
Okay.
Because your cards are tankier. You kind of just pay attention to being on a defensive, and then and kind of in the later stages, if you want to start doing a hand hate style, but that at that point you do need more cards, and hand hate tends to be better early on when you have a board presence.
Right.
So hand hate is good, but
which you could get with Magnate. Like you could stabilize with that board presence early on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But really going over him, I could see you doing a defense or a control list on him because your cards are getting bigger. But yeah, I think overall you're just better off playing offensive and going all out. And then if you do get down to that 10 HP, hand hate is always better in the early and mid game. So yeah, you don't really care if you go down to that low.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk about final rating. Final rating for Magnate. All right. I'm gonna start it off here because I've played a lot of Magnate. I'm a fan of Magnate. Because I think he's just really easy to play.
Yeah.
I think his decks are very straightforward and very easy to play. So again, all things considered, versatility, power level, play style, how easy it is to play. I think he's a solid A plus.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's all there.
Especially in set one. Like you're saying,
agreed.
there are so many alpha cards that the versatility is higher than just being like, if everything was like a third essentially with just the small few. This guy's up there. Easy A plus.
All right, so are we gonna settle on A plus?
Yeah, we'll go A plus.
A plus.
He's
all
so
right.
strong.
All right, yeah, that's Magnate Awaken. We're settling on that A plus. All right, guys, that's our list, man. That's our list for the contenders for set number 1. And with that, we're gonna kick it to you. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with any of our ratings? And you know what? Don't hold back. Let us know down in the comments what you think. Do you think Magnate's A tier? You think he's A plus, or do you think he's lower? You think he's lower? Let us know.
He's not going to be much lower, guys. Come on.
I mean, come on, yeah. No,
you're not going to say he's a C tier character. Like, get out of my face. Okay.
Yeah. So again, with that, we're going to kick it to you. Let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments. We'd be very interested to know what you guys think. And again, if you want to see more Alpha Clash content, don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell icon. So you turn on those bell notifications. Just hit the icon. You know what I'm talking about. So you can be notified when we release more Alpha Clash content in the future. With that, we're gonna take it out of here. Jim, thanks a lot. That was a lot of fun, and we'll catch you in the next Alpha Clash video. See you, everybody.
Take care.